Hi friends, and welcome back to Decorate Your Life. This is Sandy Nagel for Graphic 45. Today I'm sharing a Mother's Day gift that I made for my mom using my crafting supplies from Graphic 45. The Graphic 45 shadow boxes come equipped with hanging hooks, but I decided to turn mine into a tabletop version, so I used the Graphic 45 antique claw feet. But first, let's take care of the disclosures, shall we? The papers that I'm using for my Mother's Day shadow box come from the Graphic 45 Place in Time collection. Since I was born in May, I used the May cut-aparts paper, and I also used the purple from the March cut-aparts. My first step was to measure the plexiglass that fits on the back of my Graphic 45 shadow box. You get 2 of these acrylic sheets, and these are what holds your pictures in place. Once I've decided on how I want the background to look, I trim my paper to 8.5 by 8.5 and put it aside for later use. Next, I take down the measurements for the inside of the shadow box frames, and I'm going to use these measurements to trim some strips. Here you see me take the measurements down for the outer frame, and I cut my strips accordingly. I ink around the edges to all of my strips with my Graphic 45 Decades ink, and the color that I'm using throughout this entire project is called French Lilac. I now apply the outer strips using wet adhesive. In a moment, you're going to see how I miter these edges. This is an easy process that I learned from a past Graphic 45 designer and Paper Creations. To miter the edges, you add wet adhesive to your strip, but leave off about 1 inch from both ends. You then place a strip down and it overlaps onto the adjacent strips. You lift up the corners slightly, and with a pair of scissors, you make a diagonal cut. Once you've made this cut, you can add glue to the remaining corners of your strips. This method works like a charm. Thank you, Anne. Now I'm ready to take down the dimensions to the outer sides of my Graphic 45 Mother's Day shadow box. I trim 4 strips according to these measurements. I then ink around the edges with my Graphic 45 Decades ink and apply the strips using wet adhesive. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a moment because I want to show you what I've done thus far and what I'm going to be doing next. I went ahead and trimmed the strips, and I inked around the edges with my Graphic 45 purple ink, and the name of it is French Lilac. Now, before I go any further, what I want to do is I want to take my Graphic 45 corners and I'm going to glue them up here to the top. This is the top of my shadow box. Let me just turn it this way so y'all can see. Okay, here's the top. And what I'm also going to be doing is I'm going to go ahead and cement these claw feet from Graphic 45 onto the bottom of my shadow box. Now, in order for me to do these things, I'm going to have to use this very potent crafting cement, and I'm gonna have to do that outside because it's very strong. So I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video now, and I will be right back. Okay, so now that the metal is dry onto the wood, I decided that I'm gonna build a little piece, a strip that goes right along here. And in order for me to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of chipboard. This is just scratch, okay? And I am going to take a piece of scrap and another piece of scrap, and I'm going to build kind of like a divider here for this part right here, and I'm going to glue it onto this, and then I'm going to decorate it. So it so happens that the piece of chipboard that I'm going to be using is almost the width of this shadow box, and which is great. Okay, so that's going to work for me, and I'm just going to make it a little bit thinner. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, and I think I want to make it about 3/4, nope, 1/2 inch, just a 1/2 inch wide. Let's see if I could get it there. Yeah. Okay, and I'll put that other piece away. That will serve me for something else. And what I'm going to do here is, let me measure real quick how wide I need this to be. I actually need it to be about 8 1/4. So let me go ahead and do that. Let's see, the piece of chipboard was about a 1/2 inch. I want to make this almost 3/4 inch because, oops, not that strip. This is the strip that I want to put on there. Okay, so I'm measuring this at 3/4 inch. And just make sure that there's no, okay. And I'm going to take my Graphic 45 Decades ink and just ink around those edges. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to, let's see, make sure that it's straight, and I'm just going to glue this piece over this piece, kind of like I'm measuring to ensure that we are, let me go like so, that we get it centered. We have one strip. And now I'm going to take my chipboard piece and I'm just going to glue it right along here. Excuse me. And I'm going to add a bead of glue right along here, and then I'm going to glue this right on top of it. It's going to look so pretty. Just like that. And I guess if you wanted to, you could do the same thing for these parts right here if you wanted to, but I'm not going to do that. So let me turn it around and show it to you what it's looking like so far. I think it's so pretty. See, and if you want, you could do one here, and then another one again right along here. That is, if you wish. I think it would look really, really pretty. Now, another thing that I want to do is I want to add a decorative piece right along here and here. And let's see. And I also die cut this frame using one of my dies from Spellbinders. And this is from one of the sheets from the collection. And I mounted it with just foam squares. And this is going to go right along here. And that's pretty much it, my friends. I hope that you've enjoyed my Graphic 45 Mother's Day shadow box tutorial, and I hope that my mom likes it. Remember to visit me at www.decorateyourlife.com, where you'll find plenty of paper crafting projects, tutorials, and ideas. This has been Sandy Nagel for Graphic 45. Until next time, happy paper crafting!